In the background of this video, you see a mousetrap, but on the mousetrap there is no cheese. There is a globet, a golden one. And the golden globet symbolizes victory. You've won. And that is what people want, to win. Now, winning means different things to different people. For a lot of people, winning simply means they're left alone. They're not bothered by anything or anyone, and they can do whatever they want to do on their terms unchallenged, without having to consider anything nor anyone else, unless it's necessary. That's the common definition of winning. That's the common winning commoners are looking for, which is narcissistic, self-centered, and this lung of theirs is troublesome, but that's what they want. For others, winning implies that they outdo someone else. For more people, winning simply means that they are right, that they are acknowledged. So winning can mean different things to different people. In this video, I'm not going to talk about subjective winning, so winning according to your feeling or according to your expectations. I'm talking about any real life advantage out there. For example, you have your own house, so you don't have to pay rent, so nobody can kick you out of your own house. Or you have your own car, so you have your own transportation. Or maybe you have assets in a company that gives you a monthly revenue of around 8,000 euros, or I'm just making up something, but you have revenue every month, so you don't even have to work because you have revenue. Any real life advantage out there that you can lay your hands on, that is what I'm going to define as winning in this video. Or it can be something socially. For example, you have a group of people that like you, they can stand you, and they put up with you. Not in a negative sense, but they bear with you. Or it can be that you're quite flexible when it comes to dating and the opposite sex, so you're not stuck when someone becomes toxic. Whatever the winning is, I want you to look at the context where the winning occurs. Just like in the background of this video, you see this mousetrap with a golden globet on it. If you would see the golden globet on a pedestal, you would think, it's a prize. But now you see it on a mousetrap. So now your brain is shocked because your brain is thinking, hold on a minute, a mousetrap is to trap mice in it. When the mouse comes near and the mouse eats the food, the mouse is dead. That's a mousetrap. And now your brain sees a symbol of victory, a golden globet. But the brain sees the golden globet on a mousetrap. So the brain is shocked, the brain is confused because the brain realizes these things don't go together, winning and being trapped. And indeed, they don't go together. But don't you realize that worldly people are trapped all the time by what they perceive as winning? While the winning is factual, but the winning isn't worth it. Okay, let me give an example. Let's say you are in a bus and you have this guy looking at you all the time. You just ignore the guy. And then the guy suddenly comes close. And you put him on his place, saying, you shouldn't look at me like that. I don't know you. You shouldn't stare to people. And the other guy acknowledges that you're right. I shouldn't stare at other people. And he picks up this big knife and stabs you. What happened there? You've won. You've put him in his place. He shouldn't be staring at you all the time. You paid your fee for the bus, so you deserve to be at ease in the bus without being bothered by people staring at you. And you're correct. Everyone would acknowledge you're right. Demons would acknowledge you're right. Satan would acknowledge you're right. God himself would acknowledge that you're right about that. Everyone would acknowledge you're right. You paid your fee for the bus, and nobody should just stare at you and make you uncomfortable. So you've won by putting the fellow passenger in his place. And nobody can blame you because it's the fellow passenger that violated the social situation. But look at the context. You're in a bus. So you can't flee easily if there's danger. And you have an individual who is filled with anger and he's about to explode. So you have an individual who is about to, as I said, he's a walking time bomb. and he's staring at you. So he's not thinking clearly. He is desperate to escalate. And by you putting him on his place, you triggered him. And now he feels attacked, even though you didn't attack him. And now we use this feeling of being assaulted, which didn't happen, to quote unquote defend himself. And that's how he justifies his escalation, by that he defended himself because you attacked him, even though it didn't happen. So the winning here, you being right, wasn't worth it, because now you're in a hospital on intensive care. And the other guy, he's locked up in jail, but still you're the one fighting for your life. And if you die, you have relatives that will miss you. And people are hurt by that. So the context made clear that winning wasn't worth it. You get it? Another example, let's say you and your spouse have an argument about who's doing the dishes. And let's say that you're fed up with your spouse because you think, why do I always have to do the dishes? You should also do your part in the course. And you're correct. But if you win the argument, your spouse may feel misunderstood, and that will lead to further conflicts in a marriage later on, which eventually leads to a toxic situation for both you, your spouse, and if your children, also for the children. So then you will have an unhealthy climate in the household. So in this case, you may think, you know what? I'm going to put up with this dumb situation and I will do the dishes again. Then further escalation is dissolved. Further escalation is prevented. In this case, you realize that winning wasn't worth it. Another example. Let's say that you want to open your own shop in a street. And in a street, there are many people passing by, so you recognize, if I open a shop in that street, I'll get a lot of customers. And you did your research, and you figured out that the products that you want to sell in your shop are products people are longing for in that neighborhood. And you're correct. You go to the bank to get a business loan. The bank declines the loan. But you keep persisting to get the loan. And you think, why am I not getting the loan? Others came with very bad concepts and they got loans much harder than I did. So eventually you press on and you get the loan and you open your shop. And then after you've opened your shop, a police officer comes by and tells you that you need to watch out with some of your customers because some of them are planning to rob you. Then after the cop comes by, you realize that indeed there are people passing by in cars staring at your shop. And then the next day, you notice that some of them even followed you at your place of residence. So now you have criminals that intend to rob you, and they even know where you live, so they can even come at your place. What happened here? When you applied for that business loan and they declined it, that was a blessing in disguise. It wasn't correct for them to decline you because you had all your paperwork, you had potential, so there was no reason based on your part that the bank would decline you the loan. But it was a spiritual protection that caused you not to get the loan. And there was an employee at the bank who had to decide on where you got the loan, who looked at the context where you want to open your shop, and that employee discussed the matter with his manager, and this employee said, sir, this customer wants to loan a few $1,000s to open a shop over there. His business plan is good, and he has the ability to pay back the loan, but the street where he wants to open the shop, past 2 years, there were like 5 homicides over there. And there are gang members running around there robbing people. So if he opens his shop over there, sooner or later, he'll become a target. And then the manager told you then decline him the loan. But because you kept persisting, eventually, according to the protocol, the bank had to provide you the loan, even though the people at the bank didn't want to give you the loan, not because they were jealous of you that you want to open your own business, because secretly they tried to protect you. But you didn't see that there were people behind the scenes trying to protect you. You didn't realize this. So when you press on, you've won. But that victory, that winning, became fatal onto you, because now you can't even go on the streets without people following you. So what I am teaching you in this video is that sometimes winning isn't worth it, because the context in which the winning takes place, let me say it better, because I've said this before. When you look at the context, it should become obvious whether winning is worth it. If you win in a toxic context, then you're not really winning. You're only getting relief from being challenged. But here's the thing, if the context is toxic and you get relief within that context, you're still dealing with a toxic context. So winning in a toxic context is not winning at all. You need to be delivered and freed from that toxic context, and that is real winning. You get it? So, if, for example, you live in a flat complex, okay, you have your own apartment or own flat, let's say in British English, and shouldn't bother with the neighbor, shouldn't bother anyone else. You're just living your life without being a hinder to others. Let's say now that suddenly you have to pay high taxes in that municipality, and you don't agree with it. And let's say that on a legal basis, you can refute paying those extra taxes. Now, let's say you win. You get a letter from the courthouse that says you don't have to pay those extra taxes. But then, word comes out that you're not paying the extra taxes everyone else is paying. And what happens then is that people will going to think, who is he that he doesn't have to pay the extra taxes? We all are doing it. What happens now? You're correct that the increase of taxes was unlawful and therefore you didn't pay it. But all the other people around you tolerate it. They validate the unjust taxes. And because you don't get along with injustice, they'll now become upset with you. So sooner or later, you'll have neighbors looking angry at you. Contention starts against you. What should you do now? It was right for you not to get along with the increase of the taxation. And even the courthouse, the judge, agreed with you. But those commoners don't want to process this. In their eyes, you violate them because you don't get along with their darkness. So what you should do is, the moment you realize, okay, I'm not going to pay these extra taxes, and I'm going to counter this, but I also need to realize commoners who will get along with this BS will become upset with me because I don't go along with it. So either you will have to lie and pretend as if you did pay the taxes. Well, lie, you get what I'm saying. You have to misinform them. Or you have to decide, you know what? I'm going to move out of this place. Because the moment these people find out that I've countered this wickedness and I've won, they'll turn on me. So winning is not always worth it if the context is toxic. So sometimes it's better to lose something so that you will win in the long run. For example, let's say you're on the street, okay, and you have these police officers to stop you without any justification. You can run away, you can resist being involved with them, that's your right, but they have guns. They can easily kill you and get away with it, because it often happens in your country that police brutality goes unpunished. So what do? You tolerate them. You remain polite until the situation is gone. Why? You lose the battle, but you win in the long run. That is what believers ought to be very smart in. Always look at the context of the winning that you're aiming for. Because sometimes winning is losing. Let me repeat that. Sometimes winning is losing. And there are pagans out there who understand this perfectly. There are even commoners with no knowledge at all about the spirit world that can see this. Sometimes winning is losing, because the winning is not going to last. For example, let's say you have a plantation with slaves, and you have 3 guys that escape from the plantation. They're off the plantation. They even took a lot of money from the landlords with them. They were working for free, being exploited, so now decided we are not being paid, so we are going to take some of the money from the treasury, from the landlord with us. That's the due payment of all the years that we have been enslaved. So they took matters in their own hands and they got away. They've won. 10 days later, they're captured again and they put back on the plantation. And now they're being lynched by the slave owners for robbing them. And now the other slaves that were left behind are now traumatized by them being killed. And now that trauma will prevent any from even attempting to get rid of the yoke of slavery in the future. So now for another generation or 2, those people there will remain slaves, because the 3 that escaped, they did escape, but they didn't look at the bigger picture. They didn't have any plan on what to do after escaping. So they won by escaping, but it was short-lived. And because it was short-lived, it backfired. And now the goal that they had to abolish slavery was, it was interrupted by their own short-term success. So that's how it often goes in the world, that people want to win, but they don't look at what comes after winning. If you don't look beyond winning, then you will fall for any deception of the enemy. Because Satan is all about offering you winning opportunities that will not last. Let me repeat that. Satan is all about offering you winning opportunities that will not last. And way too often, unfortunately, also believers fall for the winning opportunities of the enemy. That's why it's important to reflect and process things on a daily basis. At the end of the day, when you're about to go to sleep, you go into prayer, you're going to Thanksgiving, and you reflect and process what happened that day. Why is that important? Because by processing things, you will notice things. And when you notice things, you can anticipate them. Don't be stuck on an unconscious autopilot. Always look at the bigger picture. Look beyond winning, because not all winning is really winning. Agree with